So give me just a second. Okay, so we have learned multiple ways of factoring polynomials at this point. We have learned to factor polynomials by greatest common factor, right? And now we're going to learn difference of squares, okay? So let's do this review. It says simplify the following. So take a look at that first binomial times binomial. Here we go. What's times x squared? X times negative 4. Good. 4 times x. Good. And 4 times negative 4. Negative 16. Okay, what happens to those two middle terms? They cancel. What am I left with? Good. Okay, look at the second one. 5x times 5x. 25x squared. Good. 5x times negative 1. Good. 1 times 5x. Good. And 1 times negative 1. Minus 1, right? Anything times 1 is okay. And then what happens to the middles? And I'm left with? Excellent. Are we starting to maybe see a pattern? All right, let's look at the last one. 2a times 2a gives me? Good. And 2a times negative 3b gives me? Good. Good. And 3b times 2a gives me 6ab. Let's write it alphabetically. That way it's easy to see that they cancel, right? And then finally, 3b times negative 3b gives me negative 9b squared. The middles cancel and I'm left with? All right. Excellent. Now let's talk about patterns you see. Somebody raise your hand and tell me a pattern you notice. Emma? You're going to have to talk really loud because I'm recording. Okay, on all of these, the middle's canceled, right? Okay, who saw another pattern? Anybody see anything else? Addie? The last number on all these is negative, right? We ended up with that minus right there. Good. Charlie? The first number is always squared. Okay, good. X squared, 25 and x squareds are both squared, right? Okay. So let me ask you a question. Let's talk about perfect squares a second. Do you remember perfect squares? Okay. Perfect squares are numbers. If you take the square root, you get a whole number. Okay. So what is 1 times 1? What's 2 times 2? What's 3 squared? 4 squared? 5 squared? 6 squared? 7 squared? 8 squared? 9 squared? 10 squared? 11 squared? Then we follow 121. 12 squared? 144. Guys, those are what are known as perfect squares. So if I say, what's the square root of 36? You would tell me, no. What's the square root of 36? 6. What's the square root of 49? 7. What's the square root of 64? 8. What's the square root of 81? You see where I'm going? So these are called perfect squares because if we take the square root, we get a whole number. Okay? So if you will notice, all of these answers, the numbers before and after are perfect squares. You see that? And also x squared is a perfect square because x squared, if I take the square root of x squared, what do I get? Good. If I take the square root of a squared, what do I get? If I take the square root of b squared, what do I get? See how those are perfect squares? Okay. And so the resulting product, these answers that we got, are called a difference of squares. Okay. Difference of squares just means if I have something like a squared minus b squared. Okay. A is a perfect square. Yes. B is a perfect square. Yes. Okay. And it's a difference because it's being subtracted. Yes. Watch how easy this is. A squared minus b squared. I'll always get this. A plus b times A minus B. A plus B times A minus B. It's always a plus and a minus. To me, these are the easiest ones to do. Okay? And we're going to go practice some. Ready? Stay with me. Last period, they were working ahead and they messed up. Stay with me. Okay? All right. A squared minus 4. First of all, are those both perfect squares?
Yes.
Are we subtracting in the middle? Yes. What's the square root of A squared? What's the square root of 4? So we do A plus 2 times A minus 2. Done. We have factored. That's all we got to do. Now, it says to check. I'm not going to make you check. I'm going to do the check. You don't have to write the check down. Okay? Here we go. A times A is A squared. A times negative 2. A times 2. And negative 2 times 2. The middle's canceled. I'm left with A squared minus 4. So I've checked it. You don't have to write that check step down. Just want to show you it works. Difference of squares. Okay, let's go to number 2. Are both of those numbers squares? Yes. Am I subtracting in the middle? Okay, what's the square root of n squared? What's the square root of 64? N plus 8 times n minus 8. Or I do plus first because I think I'm a positive person. If you're a negative person, you can do n minus 8 times n plus 8. It doesn't matter. Doesn't matter. Works out either way. Okay. Number 3. Number 3. Square root of 81. Square root of x squared. Do a plus and then do the same thing with a minus. Pretty easy. Okay. Let's go to number 5. Are they perfect squares? Am I subtracting? No. Guess what? That's a prime. That's a prime. Well, it can't be factored, right? Now, if I could factor it another way, like I could pull out a greatest common factor, then I would do that. But there's no greatest common factor between K and 25, right? So this one's just prime. It doesn't work if it's addition. Let me show you why. Okay. Don't write this, just watch. If I did K plus 5 times K minus 5, watch what'll happen. My sign would be all messed up, right? This, no, brownie face, can't do that. Bad, don't do that, right? Huh?
What if you did both additions?
Like this.
Yeah.
That would give me K squared plus 5K plus 5K plus 25, which gives me K squared plus 10K plus 25. Still doesn't work. Yeah. So this works with difference of squares. That's the tricky one. If there was like 5K squared, you'd factor out a 5. Yeah. All right, let's look at number 4. What do you think I should do on number 4, Amber? Good. I do my plus first, but you can do it either order you want. Either order you want. Okay, we did number 5. Let's look at number 6. Number 6 kind of weird. What's the square root of 1? Okay, what's the square root of 49? What's the square root of y squared? So 1 plus 7y, 1 minus 7y. I was that we were okay with having the variable be in the second term. All right, I want you guys to go do 7 through 14 right now on your own. And then we're going to come back and check them in a few minutes. Okay, we're going to come back and check them in a few minutes. Okay, on number 21, sometimes you have to factor out a greatest common factor, then factor a difference of squares. Okay, so on number 21, is 24 a perfect square? No. Is 54 a perfect square? No, so we're going to have to factor. What is the greatest common factor of 24 and 54? 6. Guys, you could also use your calculator, but 6. So here we go. If I factor out a 6, what is my first term? 24 divided by 6 is 4a squared. And what 54 divided by 6? 9b squared. That's what you have at this point, right? Okay. Now, inside the parentheses, do we have difference of squares? 4 and a squared are both perfect squares. 9 and b squared are both perfect squares. They're being subtracted. Now, warning, this is where I see a lot of people mess up. Have you ever been like out somewhere and seen a big family with like 5 or 6 kids? Right? And let's say like 3 or 4 of them are throwing a fit. I don't know, maybe it's nap time, maybe they're hungry. Who knows, right? A couple of them are being bad, and then there's that one kid who's being good. Which one do you notice? The one who's being bad, who needs the most attention, right? Okay, so when you're factoring this, you're going to notice the stuff in the parentheses. Don't forget your quiet kid. You have to bring this 6 down, okay? Don't forget your quiet kid. Bring the 6 down, and then we're going to factor. What's the square root of 4a squared? 2a. And what's the square root of 9b squared? 3b. And do a plus and a minus, right? And you are done. Just don't forget your term, right? Got to bring it down. Now, I'm not going to make you check these, but let's, on this one, I'm going to do a check. 2a times 2a is 4a squared. And then I have negative 6ab plus 6ab minus 9b squared. And I still have that 6. So when I distribute all that, I get 24a squared. These are going to cancel, so I'm going to cancel those before I even distribute. And then minus 54b squared. So my check works. Should we do another one like this together? Okay, somebody pick one on this page. 31. All right, 31. What's the greatest common factor there? mn. I can get an m out of both of those, and I can get an n out of both of those. So what's m to the third divided by m? And n divided by n just cancels, makes a 1. Okay. mn divided by mn cancels and makes a 1, and we have a negative there. Good. Is n squared a perfect square? Yes. Is 1 a perfect square? Yes. So guess what we can do now? Difference of squares. Don't forget your mn, okay? Don't forget your quiet kid over there. What's the square root of m squared? What's the square root of 1? And do a plus 1 and a minus 1. Give me a thumbs up if you're okay with this. Give me a thumbs down if you are not okay with this. Give me a sideways thumb if you're iffy. Okay, pick another one. 32. Someone who maybe gave me a sideways or a down thumb, pick one. 28, I hear. Okay. All right, what's the greatest common factor here? 5 what? M. They both have 5s. We can pull out, they both have M's. Okay. 125 divided by 5. 25. M to the third divided by M. Good. And 5M divided by 5M leaves me 1. And I had a minus sign, so it's minus 1. Inside the parentheses, do I have difference of squares? Yes. What should I not forget? Don't forget the 5m. Don't forget your quiet kid. Leave them at Kroger or something. That's not good. What's the square root of 25? What's the square root of m? What's the square root of n squared? Sorry. What's the square root of 1? So I got 5m plus 1, 5m minus 1. We feeling a little better? Okay. You want to do one more? 27. I'm hearing 27. I'm hearing 32. Let's do 32 because 32 is a little strange. All right, greatest common factor of 16 and 100. 4. I have an x to the third and an x. How many x's can I pull out? An x. Good. Now what do I do? 4x squared. Okay, so I divided. So I got 4x squared minus 25 because the x's cancel. Okay, inside that parentheses, that binomial, is it a difference of squares?
Yes.
Yes. Okay, so what do I do? 2x plus 5 and 2x minus 5. Good. And you didn't forget your 4x. I'm very proud of you. Can I do 27? Sure. Let me make sure everybody's done with 32. Need to see 27? Here we go. All right, Terry, why don't you help me on 27? Do it with me. What's my greatest common factor here? What goes into 8 and 32? I got one bigger. 8. And then I have an x squared in the first term, but I don't have one in the second term. But what do I have in both terms I can factor out? 1y. Good. And so when I divide, I'm left with x squared minus 4. How many y's? Y squared. There we go. Okay, don't forget your 8y. And then I have a difference of squares. Square root of x squared is x. Square root of 4 is 2. And square root of y squared is y. So I got x plus 2y, x minus 2y. And that's my final answer. Guys, get in the habit of like boxing your final answer for me. Okay, your assignment is the last page. There are 24 questions, but you're not going to do all 24. For homework, you're going to do number 2 through 24 evens. Evens only. There's always someone that forgets and does them all. 2 through 24 evens only. All right, get to work.